This is Jack Walton. You have a visual of me?
I do. Can you hear me? Oh, no, I don't have a visual on you, Jack. I just have a black screen.
Okay. I'll try something else. Okay.
Okay.
Sign in a minute.
There we go. Okay, I can see you now, Jack.
You have a visual of me now?
I do. Hi, Ray. You're muted.
Unmute. There we go. All right, should be unmuted.
All right.
Yeah. And Kalina, welcome. Did I pronounce it correctly?
You did, yes. It's Kalina. Thank you.
Okay.
God, I hope we get some more people here. Oh.
You know, Kelly, you sent out enough announcements. There should be more people showing up, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it a different link today than the previous one?
No,
Wouldn't it? Okay, well then,
it's the same link.
haven't-
Oh, God, I hope so. Don't say that. You're scaring me.
yeah, sorry. I'm gonna mute again because I know there's a radio in the background here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, just a heads up, there's something floating around out there that there is a city council in-person public forum in this building tonight at 6. Oh, I've just had the second person come to the door. We've got a doorbell that rings in our office, wanting to argue with me about whether there was a public meeting here tonight. I said, we're not even having in-person staff meetings.
They must think that it's a community forum in
I don't know,
person.
it doesn't make any sense because it's a city council forum is what they're responding to. And he said it specifically said it was in person, not virtual.
Ooh,
So just a heads up,
okay,
if you hear anything, don't go down there.
okay, well, thank you.
Because I think it's kind of the rabble rousers from what this guy was arguing with it. Is, well, once they've taken all our freedoms away, we're not going to get them back, you know.
Yeah,
Because I said, you know, council wants to meet
just can't
Well, why?
right now.
because we have this virus.
Duh.
Yeah. Well, the last thing
Okay.
we need is half the fire department or half the police department or half of, you know, some other department and everybody's home quarantined with COVID.
Right,
We shut down.
exactly. Okay, thank you. I will not go down there.
No.
Okay.
I'm turning the lights off in my office so they can't see me in the hallway with the lights are off.
Oh, there you go.
These are
Yeah,
off and keep it on.
okay. I'll stay out of the hallway.
Thank you. Oh, Yahoo. Oh, I'm getting happier by the minute here. Huh. Hi, Carol.
Hi there, how are you?
Pretty good.
I'll warn you, I may not be able to stay the whole time. I've got a bad bug and I may not be able to sit up for the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Gosh, I hope you're okay.
I've had 3 negative COVID tests,
Okay.
but I have a terrible cough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I might mute myself.
Okay. Well, Kalina, do you want to wait a couple of minutes or do you want to go ahead and get started?
I think we can get started if that works for everyone.
Okay.
Great. Well, yeah, let's start this meeting, community forum, first meeting of 2022. I'll do a quick introduction of myself. My name's Kalina Wickham. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the new neighborhood specialist, taking over Colin Woodrow's position. So I've only met, I think just Carol so far, maybe a couple from the grant workshop last night, but hopefully I can continue meeting you all through the different neighborhood councils. But let's get to the roll call.
Okay. Captain John Mullen,
Anthony Joe, present.
Far Views Patty Canyon,
Ray Ayton, Harvey Steady Canyon.
Franklin to the Fort. Grant Creek,
Bert Lundler, Grand Creek.
Heart of Missoula. Lewis and Clark,
OMB, present.
Lower Rattlesnake,
Robert Schultz, Lower Rattlesnake.
Miller Creek,
Jack Walton, present.
Moose Can Gully. That's you, Carol.
Carol Garlington, New Moose Can Gully, and South 39.
Okay. Carol. North side, west side. Riverfront. River Road. Rose Park. Southgate Triangle. Two Rivers. University District.
Jennifer Copley, University.
Upper Rattlesnake.
Bill Rudiger.
Okay.
All right.
10. We have a quorum.
We do. Great. Well, let's see. Did anyone look through the minutes? I believe it was November's meeting. And is there a motion to approve?
Jack Walton makes motion to approve.
Great. And do we have a second?
Second,
OMB, second the motion.
Wonderful. And all in favor of approving November's minutes?
Aye.
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 Any not in favor? Great. They're approved. Thank you all so much. So let's move to public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any public here tonight? Don't think so. Kelly, do you see any?
No.
Okay. All right, then I think we'll move to our presentation. We have Ben Brewer here to give a presentation on the Armazoola Development Guide. I believe Kelly attached it in the agenda today. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, great. It's great to be here, and I'm going to present on the Armazoola Development Guide update report that came out recently. Let me share my screen. I don't know, Kelly or Kalina, if you're able to allow me to share my screen, that would be great.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No problem. And just as an introduction, I'm a planning supervisor in the community planning division and CPDI. So this is can everyone see this document here called the Armazoola Development Guide? Coming through loud and clear. All right, I'm seeing some head nodding. So this is the report I'm going to present on today. So I'm going to start up my presentation, and I invite you to ask any questions along the way, or save them for after, or and I'll walk through this. So let's throw this up here. Okay. So I'm presenting on the Armazoola Development Guide, which is it's a report on residential development activity, so I'm going to talk through the background of this project a little bit, so you have some context. It was originally created in 2007, and at that time it was called the Ufta Report, which stands for Urban Fringe Development Area. And the original Ufta Report provided foundational information for what we know about our community, and look to inform where would be the best places for residential development, given what we know about the community. And ask basically a fundamental question, which is, do we have capacity to accommodate growth within the urban area? And over time, the report has consistently showed us that yes, we do, but it also kind of depends on how we grow. So the report is also meant to be a tracking mechanism for residential development, and allows us to see if infrastructure, improvements and projects are aligning with where housing is actually going. And it's a tool for agencies to use to evaluate investments and capital improvement projects. This is a time where I'd just like to make a note that the city is not the responsible for or does not go out and do or make development happen. So we're in the guiding and incentivizing game, and that's why this part of why this can be used or is helpful to use for tracking purposes. Just to go through the kind of the evolution of the report after it was created in 2007, for the next 10 or so years, it was updated on an annual basis. And around in 2018, our department, our division, did a 10-year Ufta look back, kind of a summary of the last 10 years of development, and then also provided a 10-year look forward, which was meant to project, based on trends that we were seeing and evaluating where development, we might expect development to be occurring over the next 10 years. And just to point out, in the original Ufta report, there were projections included in that were called allocations. And so this was kind of a check-in on how, whether those were accurate or not, and then and ultimately developed a new approach for how to kind of take that on. So the OMDG Looking Forward report developed this new approach that really aimed to align the reporting that was happening in the report with goals that were stated in the growth policy. As a reminder, the growth policy was adopted in 2015, so just a few years before this report came out. And I apologize if you can hear vacuuming in the background. I'm doing this from the office here, and our custodians are coming through. So to pick back up from there, that when the OMDG report was created, this was basically a rebranding and kind of a new development of a new model for how we do this. And so OMDG stands for Armazoola Development Guide. And I'm going to talk through kind of what went into what the structure of that is and how that changed as well. And then just to bring us up to this report that we're going to talk more about this evening, we missed some years, and so this is catching us up over. It's a 3-year look back, again at residential development, and so those are for the years 2018 through 2020. When the Ufta report was created, it established what were then called the Ufta Regions, and set the kind of the area or the boundary for this project, and basically that aligns with the growth policy boundary. So just to point out that includes both city and county land. It's what we call the urban fringe area, not just where the city exists now, but where development could expand to in the future, at an urban level at least. And it was aligned, or the Ufta regions, just to point out, were really kind of based on alignment with census block groups. And so they don't easily match up to the neighborhood council boundaries. So there's a little bit of deciphering to figure out kind of where, which neighborhood or which part of a neighborhood fits into which Ufta region. So the next few slides are These go back to the 2018 report. And so I just keep that in mind as we go through these. These are to kind of walk through how that report was built and what it was based on. So that helps to give an understanding of the update that I'm going to talk more about afterwards. And basically what happened in 2018 is that we developed a new kind of model for how we were looking at development. And again, this was part, one of the components of this report was a look forward. So it involves a projection element rather than kind of the yearly reporting that we had been doing before that. So everybody hear me okay? So, okay, great. So the way this model was put together was to basically layer several levels of analysis, one on top of another, and then to evaluate what comes out of that. So the first layer that we used was called the capability layer, and basically that screens out where development can or cannot occur, and that's really based on things as simple as physical or restraints like floodplain areas or steep slopes or unbuildable land, and then also areas that are indicated by zoning that are not allowed for residential uses and things like that. The next layer that was put in the model was called the capacity layer, and this really looks at how much development can occur. And so, we really built that around land use designations from the growth policy itself, and also from existing zoning. And basically, it was based on between those two, what the highest level of use could be. And there was another element to this that included a calculation that looked to see if it made sense economically to redevelop a parcel or not, based on the value of the land and the structures on top of it. And the next layer that went into this model was called the suitability layer, which really looked at where development should occur. This is called the suitability layer, and this is the layer that we carry forward into this report. So I'll talk more about what this is, but basically this is the layer that tried to really align itself with the goals that we have in the growth policy, and what the vision of the growth policy for more compact development, walkability, our focus inward approach. And so that was scored under various criteria and then applied as a layer to the map. And again, this is a reminder, this is all going back to the 2018 report, where that ultimately ended up or culminated in was the opportunity map, which kind of synthesized those previous layers into a single map that tries to indicate and guide development for where the most capacity and suitability and whatnot are available in the city. And this document was really meant to be kind of a resource to the community and to developers and whatnot. So that's kind of brings us up to now, and moving forward from here, I'm going to walk through the findings and the update that we've created since 2018. And so again, just to point out the findings here and the data and everything that we're going to go through. This is going back to reporting back. So this is development that has happened already, and kind of helps us to see what patterns and trends there have been over the last few years. So again, this is the years 2018 through 2020. Study area is the urban fringe area. It's approximately 40,000 acres. And as we go through these numbers, I just like to point out that in the growth policy, there are projections of kind of the number of or the amount of housing that we would need to keep pace with the growth trends that we expect to see. And that in the growth policy, it calls for somewhere between 510 and 700 dwellings per year. So that's not to say that that's exactly the number we need, but that's a reference, to kind of fall back on as we go through this. So over the 3-year period that we're looking at, we saw, we would expect to see based on this projection, we'd expect to see, somewhere between 1,500 to 2,100 dwelling units. What we actually saw was 1,636. So within that window or within that range, but on the lower end for sure. And before we go on here, I'm going to just walk through the suitability model here, so it makes a little more sense. So again, this is was kind of the filter or the layer that was developed in the first OMDG report, and it really tries to call out, the features or criteria that align or are indicators of alignment with the growth policy. And so the ones that were used for this include commercial service areas, grocery store locations of grocery stores, locations of transit stops, and proximity to these things, and then commuter trails, parks, schools, things of that nature. And then basically the different tiers in the suitability model were based on kind of what combination of these features exist within a certain area of where we're talking about. So kind of the most minimally suitable, it, has none of these things, but it is within 500 feet of of utilities, of public sewer and water. Tier 2, fairly suitable is, moving forward, all of these tiers are at least, within that range of utilities. And then fairly suitable includes also proximity to at least 2 suitability features. Tier 3 includes proximity to 3 or more suitability features. And then Tier 4 is very suitable. That's the most suitable, tier in this model. And then there's also a layer that's included that, really applies to the fringe area where utilities don't necessarily exist yet, but has the capacity or the potential to grow into a very suitable or more suitable area by having some of these features already in existence. So that's kind of to show there are areas that, if expanded into, could include these or score higher on this model. And as we go through the following maps, this is the legend to call out the least suitable graded areas. Kind of have this would you call that beige, olive green? Go with that. And then the higher suitability are blue and maroon here. And so, I'm going to just walk through the numbers here. So for 2018, we had these numbers that we saw 283 single dwelling residences. That's your typical, detached home. 8 duplex units, 168 multi-dwelling units for a total of 494 total residential units. As you're looking through the map, I'm just going to point out how this is all set up. The OMDG regions, those kind of like larger blocks in the map are called out with these heavier lines. Your multi-dwelling developments, your apartment buildings and whatnot are called out with these kind of mustard beige circles that get bigger depending on how many apartments or units were included in the development. The suitability tier legend is here, which is applied on the map, and then your single and duplex units called out in the purple here. And finally, the proportion of development for the year based on the suitability scoring is shown in this pie chart in the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to move on to 2019, and we see a very similar total amount of units with a higher number of single dwelling residences, 2 more duplexes. And then finally in 2020, the total number of units that we saw jumps up a little bit, and we see quite a few more multi-dwelling units. And again, the as you look through the report, you might notice that the location of a lot of the development does fall in kind of the lower suitability tier designated areas on the map. This is a summary here, and so for a total of 846 new houses, detached houses, 46 duplex units, and 744 multi-dwelling units over the course of 3 years, for a total of 1,636 units entirely. So this is also a point to call out the percentage of development by suitability area, which again sees the most development in the tier 1, minimally suitable, and tier 2, and then less development as we get into the higher tiers here. To hone in a little bit more on the multi-dwelling development that we've seen, just to call out that 2018 and 19 were the only 2 years over the last 10 years, that we saw less multi-dwelling development than your single dwelling homes. So kind of a aberration there. That's interesting. And and then these tables get a little wonky. And again, this is all information coming out of a fairly dense report. And so, to me, these are the kinds of things that take a little time to pore over and kind of be able to look through. So if any of you have interest in kind of getting into the numbers more, I definitely recommend reading through the report and seeing the different ways that some of this data is presented. But this slide is to call out a little bit more kind of the more of the distribution of multi-dwelling development. This table here breaks it out by region. So, the East Mullen and Grant Creek OMDG regions saw by quite a bit the larger share of multi-dwelling development, and then also the West Mullen areas saw quite a bit as well. And then kind of another way to look at this is this table breaks down the number of projects by size of the project. So basically, how many apartments are we talking about in these different projects? 3 to 7, 8 to 10, 11 to 20, so on and so forth. And the total number of units here for the 3-year period between 26 projects led to a number of units that is less than just the 2 over 50 apartment projects in the year 2020 alone. So just to say clearly the distribution of housing and the amount of housing by project size can vary quite a bit. And finally, to call out that during this 3-year period, there was really not very many officially or technically affordable housing units created. This was a period that saw very few projects that included what we would consider affordable housing. But to note that there are several projects in the pipeline or in the middle of development, that will be opening up soon, and this year or the next, and so that'll look different in the next reporting cycle for this. And these are the projects specifically that included affordable housing over that period. There is a section in the report that's related to entitlements, what we call entitlements. And this is can be kind of a dense and confusing topic, but basically entitlements are the land or property that's created that is in some stage or another of being available for development, for new development. So it's land that has gone through some phase of the subdivision process, and so that's an indication to us, of where future development could happen and where it's available to happen. It gets fairly confusing because not all subdivisions end up being built out. Some of them also don't get built out for 10 or 20 years until after they've been approved, and so it's not necessarily a specific or accurate indicator of where development will happen, or at least happen in the short term. But it is an important piece of this puzzle and an important thing to track. I'm not going to get too far into the specifics on this. I think I would point out, that there are there's a very high number of potential lots, in this pipeline, but the amount of those that are actually available now is a much smaller share, and there's more to be kind of seen as far as when the rest of that reservoir will open up and become available for development. Again, these are more tables on the specific to entitlements. I think the interesting thing about this one here, future lots to be platted by expiration year, is that it does call out that there are quite a few of these entitled lots that would expire, are set to expire if they're not acted upon to finalize and within the next 5 years or so. So, sorry, was there a question? No. Okay. So I'm almost done here. Also, just to point out that the East Mullen and Miller Creek area both have quite a few of those the portion of those entitled lots. There's also information included in this on townhome exemptions. I guess what I would point out here is that, for those of you who are less familiar with this, townhome exemptions are a form of exemption to the subdivision process. And so any exemption is an easier process to go through than subdivision itself. And so they've become pretty popular, or were pretty popular over the last 10 years or so, and become more common. As we see in the numbers here, the percentage of or the share of overall residential development that went through this process has gone down during this 3-year period, and that does make sense based on changes that were made by the city with regard to the city specific regulations on townhomes that really aim to focus them to be more of a specific tool for infill development rather than kind of like the go-to tool overall. And there was based on challenges using that process for larger scale residential developments. And I'll just run through the general conclusions of this report, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you have or talk through anything that you'd like. The first, main conclusion was that development through the lens of suitability is useful, but there's room for improvement on that lens. This report does address entitled lots and the role that they play in this type of tracking, and I think moved our understanding of that forward some, and gave us ideas for how to incorporate that more and differently the next time. It also called out that there is a certain amount of development that's baked in. So there are decisions that have been made in the past, potentially even a long time ago that are going to be affecting and influencing, the development that we see over the next, years to come. That's already, can be considered baked in. This suitability layer was really meant to try to portray the goals of the growth policy, which look towards or abdicate or project a focus inward approach to growth for the city. And based on the findings in this report, we're seeing that the transition on the ground towards those goals is not immediate, and a lot of the development that the report is looking at, are in areas that are not necessarily the types of inwardly focusing areas where the growth policy at least would point towards wanting to see more density and development. And finally, the report calls out that it does not necessarily address kind of the effects of master planning. For example, the recent Swiptacane master plan in the Westmoreland area is not accounted for in this, and it's not necessarily illustrated, and so raises questions about how that should be incorporated or not as we track development for this throughout the area and the region. So that's what I have for you today, and with that, I'll hand it back to Kalina and Kelly, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you, Ben. Jennifer, you have a question?
Yes, Ben, I'm thinking about how to explain this to my neighbors. So I want you to imagine that you're speaking at about the same reading level as Time magazine for about a 12-year-old. Can you give me the simple what my neighbors need to know, please? I appreciate all the detail. I've taken a lot of notes. I appreciate your charts, but I need the simple version. What should I tell my neighbors?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think, for one thing, this document itself and the previous report are resources for people that are and organizations and community members and whatnot that really are wanting to kind of dig into this. And so, just knowing that it's available and a resource is important. I think it's something that we want to get the word out on. But as far as the findings of the report, I think, the thing that we are wrestling with on it is that, development continues in a way that is not in line with what we would want to see as far as, focusing inward and building an efficiently and creating neighborhoods and a community where you don't need to drive everywhere and where there's compact development that you can afford and live in and enjoy. And so, that's an indication, that there are, we need to think more about how to implement that.
Wonderful. Carol?
Hi, Ben, I wanted to know, way back when you did the graph showing all the developments that were around, why were so many of them in the minimally suitable category?
Yeah,
They were all brown.
Yeah, I think that is the question, and I think that's again, going back to Jennifer's question as well, what is the takeaway from this? And that's the challenge of trying to align, and incentivize, trying to incentivize or figure out some way to help guide and push develop, the way that the city grows and develops toward in a different direction than it is headed in some ways currently. And there's a lot to that. There's quite a bit to that, and there's a lot to talk through. But I think this report is one is another indication that is remains a challenge and something that we're grappling with. But the bottom line is, you're right. There's a lot of development happening in areas that could be better. I think figuring out ways to create infill, really, there's different ways to break this out a little bit, but one of them is whether we grow out or we grow in, and if we grow in, probably we grow up as well to some degree. But there's the inclination and the pattern set for decades, for a long time, is to grow out, and a lot of that depends on access to cars and kind of laying things out so that you can get around by car, and changing that is really hard, and it's going to take a long time. Or it could, hopefully it doesn't take a long time for some of it at least, but it does take some thought and some doing. I see there's other questions, so I'll stop talking.
Thanks, Carol. Ray, you have a question?
I do. I know it's along the same lines as, so within the development department, is there a group that is then beginning to work on your observations to come up with the incentives that are going to sort of hit developers over the head with a 2x4, or what, to convince them that there's a need for the city to be building in suitable areas rather than in, as you showed, two of the most unsuitable areas in Missoula?
Yeah, well, I guess my response will be we are in a position where normally, when you get that question, I think our response would need to be something like, yes, we are looking into it and doing what we can to address this. I'm lucky to be here representing the city, and able to say, actually, we are really taking this head on. And I think that is through the comprehensive code reform project, which is forthcoming, as far as the starting up in the next several months. We're in the RFP process currently to select consultants to help with that project. But the impetus and the reasoning for moving forward with that, and it's no small thing. It's going to be a big, challenging project, but it's I get to say that the city recognizes enough that the importance of it, and trying to do something about this, that we are really moving ahead with trying to come up with some solutions. So this is also to say, this is an invitation to this group and the people that you represent in the neighborhoods, that to have that on your radar and be starting to pay attention to that and see how you're able to and interested in following and interacting and engaging with that project, because it's going to be an important one. I don't know, Gwen, if you want to have any thoughts on that either, but that would be my response, Ray.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I can speak to it a little bit too, and it's a great question, and I always kind of come back to this. The starting point is, we live in a free market capitalistic society, so you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. However, getting past that, I think that we as the city can try to eliminate as many barriers as possible to open the door to the type of development that we want to see. And then I think another tool is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to help impact the money equation when things are being built, to try and get it have it become more affordable. But my entire time I've been on council, we've always discussed the fact that there are many areas of town with higher density zoning, yet either they historically were not built out to that density, and new density going in is new building going in is not being built at that density. And I think I think in the landscape of Montana law, we really have to use carrots instead of sticks. That's just the way our entire legal system's set up. So that's the direction we are going in. But I think City of Missoula has a lot of good, smart people on it in that department, CPDI, and the community is focused on it. And that's how you help make things go forward. So I don't know, Ben, what else would you say? It's a hard one, but people are working on it.
Yeah, I think that summed it up great. And just, there's momentum, I think, that is going to address this and do what we can to address it and meet it head on rather than kind of wait for something to happen otherwise. So that's an exciting thing.
Great. And I think there's a question from Jack.
Yeah, I represent the Miller Creek area, and I know when Brookland and Avery, I think it was supplement 15 was approved for Upper Linda Vista. There's like 36 apartment units. And it's all set up to be developed and that type of thing. And I know down at the base of Shaver and Lower Miller Creek Road, there's probably another 11 buildings, possibly 200 dwelling units. But the question I have is, what is considered affordable?
That is a great question. And again, I am happy to be able to report that we have a more definite answer for that than we have in the past. With the creation of the housing department, which has recently, been combined into the CPDI department, but the adoption of the housing policy, some change, implementation of that policy in some areas. Following that, we do have city specific what's the word, parameters or definitions, I guess, of what constitutes affordable housing, whether it's it's based on average median income and different percentages based on that. And I unfortunately can't tell you exactly what those are offhand, but we are able to point to some specific benchmarks that that we can look to and base decisions off of and work from. So but I absolutely hear your question. It is a word that gets thrown around in a lot of different situations in a lot of different ways, and it can be very it can mean different things and to different people, and can cause more confusion than it can clear up sometimes. So I think the city has kind of made some progress in making it kind of a more defined and meaningful term.
Yeah, because I know when they did that supplement 15, the thing is the land has been shaped and stuff like that. It's all ready to go, but it's been sitting there for 5 years and there hasn't been any sign of anybody wanting to put in apartment buildings. And that kind of concerns me that this has been sitting there ready to go because the water, sewer, the curbs, the main street going in there is right there. But yet I don't know whether it's cost of building going up or whether there's nobody interested in developing that up here in that area right now.
Yeah, I think, echoing what Gwen said earlier, we live in a state where we don't have as many tools available to us as there are in some other places. And so, there's just limitations to how much we're able to do to ensure specific things happen at specific times. I think, I would just say again, that the creation of an affordable housing trust fund, the creation of programs that the city can facilitate to move things forward and not wait on the action of others is a big deal, and we'll continue to see more come out of that.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions for Ben? Well, thank you so much, Ben. It was super informative.
Thank you, and thanks for letting me talk and for the great questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the neighborhood project funds with the improvement grant. So Kelly and I just hosted a grant workshop last night. A good chunk of folks actually came out to go over the grant, go through some specifics of the grant. I think you all may have known that there was a little bit of adjustments that happened from the previous grant, just some cleaning up that Kelly and Laval did. So we went through that, and then just a quick overview of the timeline. We have a deadline for pre-application discussion on February 18th, and that's just for each grantee to talk with Kelly or I about their project and get them connected to the correct city agencies that they need to connect with before they fully submit their grant. And then the application's due at 5 p.m. on March 18th. And then at the end of March, the beginning of April is when the grant committee will begin the review and scoring. And then they'll meet specifically on April 11th to review the projects. And then the community forum on April 28th is when we'll give you an overview of the different projects, with city council doing an approval in early May. And then we will award the project contracts at the end of May. We are gonna send out, I think, working on a kind of a news flash to folks through the city to get a really robust grant application pool this year. But from the grant workshop last night, I think we're gonna have a lot of really great projects to fund, and I'm really excited to see all of the possibilities. I think if anyone in your neighborhood councils or anyone of you are interested in being on the grant committee, please let Kelly or I know. I'm sure we'd love to have some more folks on that committee. And I think that's all that I have right now for the project funds. Kelly, do you have anything else to add? No,
I don't think so, Kalina. I think you pretty much got it. Said everything.
great. Wonderful. So we're going to move on to reports. And I'll give a quick little neighborhood report. As I mentioned earlier today, I'm the new neighborhood specialist. So technically my second week on the job. It's been really exciting, and I really hope that I can connect with each one of you. If I haven't already, please feel free to reach out to me, email, phone call, whatever works best for you. I'm really excited to get to know each of you. But in, some other things that are happening that I wanted to put on your radar, I think there was some emails that went out yesterday or today from our community development team, specifically housing. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is going to set up some listening sessions specifically about displacement, housing displacement. Those will be on Tuesday, February 8th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And then Thursday, February 17th from 6 to 7:30 p.m., both on Zoom. And those are just really they're just being hosted so that we can hear directly from the residents about their experiences, concerns, solutions to inform future policy strategies. So I encourage all of you to join if you're able, or encourage your neighborhood councils and any residents that you can to go to those sessions. I'll bring it up to all of the neighborhood meetings that we have in the next few weeks. I know I'll be there so I can learn a little bit more, but I think this would be really great opportunities to learn from different neighbors, different neighborhoods about their experiences with housing, and a good way to get your voice heard as well. Leads me into, this will be on Engage Missoula, and just reinforcing that that's such a great resource for you all to check on different projects that are happening in the Missoula community. I know there's a couple right now that are active and needing to get some community feedback. So make sure that you're continuing to check that. And I think that's all that I have to report for the neighborhoods. I know it's a quick one. Newbie over here. Kelly, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything. Nothing right now.
Great. Does anyone have anything to add on, well, I guess actually we're just gonna move to neighborhood council reports, and I would love to continue what you all have been doing and just kind of hearing from what's been happening at each of your neighborhoods. It's a good tool for me to hear directly from you and your neighborhoods as well. So does anyone want to start talking about what's happening in your neighborhood? Carol.
I will. We had a meeting just last week. It was on the 19th. And it came down to we need to stop and review the bylaws, the old ones and the new ones. We haven't done that yet, and we have assigned ourselves to do that by the next meeting. And we also have assigned ourselves to update the resources page that we developed for our neighborhood, which is now somewhat out of date. And then we decided that we would reapply for the neighborhood grant for the deer study. Just do it all over again. Keep it in front. And that's all, basically.
All right, Ray.
So for us up here, we actually at the last leadership team meeting earlier this month, we approved the bylaws with a few changes in it. And I believe that maybe made it to the Office of Neighborhoods at this point. And and we're working on a grant application also for the neighborhood improvement grants that will relate to the one and only park in our neighborhood that has the potential for development. So that's where we are with that. And we'll keep pushing on that one for now. That's basically it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Colleen?
For Lewis and Clark, we have received our seating stones for the outdoor classroom from the grant that we received last spring. We're waiting for now, of course, the weather to change to get them set up by the Parks Department. We also have part of our Bancroft Ponds Park has been eliminated from the terrible encroaching golden willows that we've had for years, and they were encompassing the power lines. And so Montana Power dug them out for us. We've been meaning to do this for the last decade. And that will be in the springtime. We plan to replant it. The city, we're going to do it natural because, of course, it's a conservation lands park. And another thing is we worked with Ben Weiss in the transportation department to put some new traffic circles and stop signs near the people that are on the streets near Sentinel High School. It actually has really helped. So those are what's going on with us. And we are not doing a grant this year. The first time in 5 or 6 years, we were taking a break.
Great. Jack's hand is raised, and I'm not sure if that was from the last section or not, but I'm going to go to Jack. Oh, you're muted, Jack.
Yes. there's a commercial lot up on Miller Creek by the substation right on top of the hill. And about 2 months ago, there was a sign went up. They're going to put in 2 4-unit commercial shops. And the first building already has 3 of the units identified. One's going to be a kind of a market. Another one's going to be kind of a cafe, deli type thing. And then the third one is a preschool. And the fourth one hadn't been identified yet. And then there'll be another second building of 4 units built later. Also, within the last 3 or 4 months, there's been, years ago, there was a lot of complaints about stop signs up on Jeff Drive and Alicia and Joy Drive and stuff. And so there's been a few stop signs installed on Jeff Drive and Alicia and Joy Drive, which a lot of people were happy with. And then we're scheduled to have our meetings on the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and we haven't met for the last couple of months. So we'll get going here again now that we have the Office of Neighborhood Coordinator. So we're looking forward to you, Kalina. So we'll keep you posted.
Wonderful. Great. Yeah, I'm excited to meet with that group. Jennifer?
Good evening. The University Neighborhood Council has found it a little difficult to encourage new membership. We've had a couple of resignations. Zoom meetings aren't quite as exciting as meetings in person, as you all know. We've been meeting with people about the newly designed entrance to the university area, the university corridor, talking with them and communicating with them about their plans. We've been surveying our constituents about what they would like to do with Bonner Park. Very heavily used. There are still areas of that park which are almost not used at all, in spite of crowding in other parts of the park. So we're taking a look at that with a community survey. We've developed a snow shoveling program, leaf flaking program in combination with the university students who come to all of our meetings. We're very careful to engage with them in any decisions that we make. And we've been busy planning a community meeting that will happen this spring. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. Does anyone else want to chat about what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Sure, I will. This is Bill Rudiger from Upper Rattlesnake. Welcome, Kalina. Appreciate your involvement in this and hope we get to work with you some more. We're struggling, like several of the other councils, trying to build enthusiasm without meeting people. It's pretty tough. We all agreed not to jump into anything during the holiday season, and we're just starting to get back together and do some neighborhood planning. We've had a couple of, large meetings that kind of we decided not, and it looks like we've got for a couple of more months anyway. But we're doing our best, and we have a bunch of enthusiastic people. And when we can get out and meet our real neighbors in a larger forum, I think we're going to have a lot to add to the city. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have actually some hand raised. So let's grab those first. Jack, did you raise your hand? Did you forget something? Oh.
I tried to lower my hand.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully I got it.
Great. Ray?
Indeed. Two quick things that came up. I apologize. One of them is that if anybody knows somebody who's involved in the Missoula Fort Missoula projects. Our Forest Service building down on Whitaker Park is, I don't know how much longer it's going to last. The driving force behind it, Keith Thorokill, is still very much alive and has all of the information about what that building was and so on. And he would love to find somebody who would take on that project. Even our previous historical preservation officer was excited about it too. So that's out there. And if there's nobody else, then a little bit of humor for the end here. We purchased well over 100 of the sort of to try to mitigate some of the driving going on in our area, signs that say drive like your kids live here. And we've not been able to get them distributed because of all the snow, but a few people have put them out. And the problem they're having is that they get buried partway in the snow and it says, drive like your kids. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for
Okay.
letting me know about the Fort Missoula building too. I can see what I can do to connect you with the fort. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, Bert.
Thanks, Galena. I apologize. I had another call that I took and I disappeared from the screen, and you may well have called on me 8 times, but I didn't hear one of them. At any rate, we have not met in recent months and basically are awaiting the resubmission of the rezoning request for 2920 Expo Parkway, where the developer would like to have a number of 4-story apartments if the proposal resembles the one 2 years ago. So that's a really big deal for us. And we're anticipating having a leadership team meeting immediately once we know what that is, and then we'll have a general membership meeting. We'll need to do elections. We're due for that. Grant Creek itself has some interesting things happening right now. The city purchased some open space a couple of years ago at the mouth of Grant Creek, and there's a management plan being developed that will turn that into publicly accessible trailhead, maybe by this fall, maybe later, but certainly there's a possibility that, and that will allow for trail access for foot at the mouth of Grant Creek onto some lands that have a beautiful view of the valley. The Grant Creek Trail Association has worked with the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, and we will be installing a couple of tribal interpretive signs on the Grant Creek Trail this summer. Hope to have a dedication. And we've got a couple of benches that we're having the pony carvers at the carousel carve the back, and we're hoping to add a couple of benches to our trail as well. So that's pretty much the updates that I'm aware of from Grant Creek.
Great, thank you. And looks like Bill has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing me again. I left something out that was pretty important, and that is we've been developing the upper and lower Rattlesnake a transportation plan. It's a citizens initiative, and we spent a couple of years on it, I think now, and it's out for public comment right now. So a lot of energy spent on this, and I don't know if any neighborhood groups have done this before, but we pretty much comprehensively have looked at all of our roads, our trails, and how they interrelate with each other, and what recommendations we have for the entire Rattlesnake drainage. So I just wanted to mention that. And one other thing while I have this, and this is for Colleen, you mentioned the ponds that were being built. And are those the duck ponds behind Grizzly Casino?
Yes, they are. And they're not built. They're already there. They
Oh, I
exist.
know.
We just take care of that conservation lands, and we're trying to develop what was set up in the early 90s. So it's an education that we have all the schools come and do science and observe the birds and the
Right.
animals that are there. So we have been working on that for the last 5-6 years, and we still have some things left to do. But this year we're taking a break to catch up on what we already have going on.
Okay,
So,
well, the reason I ask is I have a friend that's a waterfowl biologist, has been interested in working. He lives in that area, right? Oh, on the South Hills overlooking the ponds. I think it's in your district, but he'd love to work with you folks on that. I can forward you his name. He's excellent. He's retired.
Sure, that would be fine. Yeah, we have a meeting. We meet the first Wednesdays of the month is when we meet.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
but go ahead and send that information to me and I'll contact him.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So I just wanted to check in with either Robert or Anthony.
Unfortunately, the Captain John Mullen has not met for a while, so I think I'll have to reach out to the leadership team and see if we could get it going again.
Sounds good. Robert?
Yeah, the Lower Rattlesnake hasn't had a meeting for several months now. I think our last one was October or November. The only thing going on right now is the progress being made on getting some noise mitigation for the railroad crossings, getting the trains so they don't have to blow their horns. It looks like we have a solution. The money is there, and I have been promised it should be done by this spring with some horns that are stationary there at the crossings rather than on the trains themselves, which should be much quieter for the surrounding area. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. That's really great, I think, for every neighborhood to hear what's happening in the other neighborhoods. And of course, it's really great for me to get a good insight into what's been happening. And I really look forward to going to all of the upcoming council meetings so I can meet you all a little bit more and get to know your neighborhood a little bit more. So let's move into the City Council Liaison Report with Gwen.
Sure, thanks. And it's good to see everybody tonight. And Kalina, welcome to the city. So I was trying to kind of make up a list of things to talk to you about what council's been up to. And we have new councilors that we were sworn in at the beginning of January. So basically we have a new council, which creates a lot of different dynamics. And the 4 new electeds have been doing a lot of onboarding education that started in mid-November after they were elected. So lots of onboarding sessions with all of the different departments. And we kind of split it up into 2 waves. So they had basic onboarding in November, December. And then in March, they're going to have more onboarding with all the departments, because I thought instead of just getting a huge amount of information in December, and then you sit on council, it's too much to process, it's too much to absorb. So we kind of gave them a framework, or as I call it, the scaffolding. And then in March, we're going to kind of try and fill in the scaffolding a little bit more after they've had about 3 months on council to sit there and see different things come through. In terms of specific things that we are working on, gosh, we passed a master fee schedule for parks. That is if any fees that parks charge for special use of fields or any of these special facilities, every year or 2, we revise those fees based on the actual cost of what it costs to do the extra prep, as opposed to somebody just going and walking their dog at Bonner Park. This is if you want a field lined out at Fort Missoula for soccer and goals, put up, then there's extra cost. We also approved, we have our ongoing master sidewalk program, of course, and we try and put in, I think I don't want to say it's a little over 1 mile of sidewalks every year, which we're on like a 150-year schedule to get everything filled in. But, you know, you do what you do and you keep taking bites out of that elephant. So we proved the sidewalk program. The one that has come through so far is for Eaton Street in Franklin to the Fort Ward 6. That is a safe route to school. It's a main corridor. There's a lot of thought and planning that's gone into our master sidewalk plan. So it's not just fill in every gap everywhere, because as I said, we have very limited capacity, but instead it's really focusing at those destinations, getting kids to schools and parks safely, getting people to bus stops, getting them to commercial areas. So you have to kind of prioritize and have strategy, and that's what that's all about. Probably the biggest thing that we're working on right now is our rules for city council, which, believe it or not, Brian Von Lossberg, Jordan Hess, Marty Rabine, city clerk, and I started working on rules last April. And it sounds easy, and it's not. It's a huge project, and we spent a lot of time on it. We brought it to council, I believe, in December, and had the old council give feedback and comment. And then we wanted the new council to also work through it, analyze it, provide input. So silly me, I scheduled 1 hour on Wednesday. I thought we would finish it up, and we did not. So in February, I'm going to have a 2 or 3 hour meeting, and we're going to get it done. I'm telling you right now. But there has been a big focus. We needed to address the rules. Sometimes when there are hiccups in meetings or things don't run very smoothly, can we make it better with the rules? Can we make a better process? So that's one thing that we have addressed, any little issue that we had noticed over the last few years. Meetings are virtual now, and I don't think they'll be virtual forever, that's for sure, but I think there will be a hybrid component to encourage public participation. I think that's our new world we're looking at, so we needed to address that in our rules. And then, no surprise, we have spent a lot of time on decorum. And I think in general, honestly, our Missoula City Council has pretty good behavior, but there are times when it's less than optimal, and there are times when the public's interaction in terms of public comment is less than optimal. And honestly, I remember someone's parents were visiting a few years ago. They were from Massachusetts, one of the counselors' parents, and they said, "Oh, at such and such town in Massachusetts, the counselors scream at each other all the time. You guys are so well behaved." So, so I take that as a compliment. I think in general, we have a good functioning council, which is no small matter these days in our world. I think we have a functioning council, but also we have a culture in our America of today where decorum is an issue. So we wanted to tighten up those rules and try and really create a good culture in our council where people disagree, but we function and we discuss it and we move forward. And also public comment. If there can be times when public comment is very chilling for other people to give public comment, they are not comfortable then if someone is approaching it in a very obstreperous way. So there's all sorts of reasons why decorum is important, and we've worked very hard on that, and we'll see. I think we've got some good rules in there. But I was going to say, with the new counselors, as they are being onboarded and they're getting used to being on council, it's a huge amount of information. And I will always say it took me a good 18 months to 2 years before I really felt like I got it and I could be effective. It takes that long to get up to speed with so many different moving parts in city government. So they have this, they're drinking from the fire hose. But at the same time, I think I was elected president and Jordan Hess is vice president, and we have worked closely to really try and create a positive culture. I would like for council to be back in person, hopefully within months and not years. I was thinking it would be sooner, and then the Omicron variant hit and we're kind of back. We're back back in virtual for a while. I think it's really important for people to create those relationships. And that has been missing the last 2 years virtually as we've been on Zoom. And when you disagree with people who have different takes on values in certain areas, I think there's always going to be overlap, but when you do not have those conversations in the hallway or during lunch or for a beer afterwards where you're, oh, tell me what your kids are doing. When you don't have that, it's really a huge, huge gap. So I'm crossing my fingers that we can be back in person this spring. And I don't want to lose this window of time to create those relationships because I think it really helps in the long run because we have a lot of contentious items come through and emotions can run high and you need to have that foundation to stay solid. So that's my 2 cents. And I was going to say years ago when I was on the Rose Park Neighborhood Council, we did a general meeting in like late spring or early fall, I forget when it was. And we had the Big Dipper ice cream truck come and it was a chunk out of our budget, but we had close to 100 people that came. And we don't know, it's so fluid with these COVID numbers and the new variants, who knows? But also at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to move forward with our lives here. And I know everyone is hoping to get membership and get people involved more with their neighborhood councils. And I would just throw out whatever ice cream truck you can get and advertise that. And I think people are so hungry to see each other in person that you will have some really good crowds that turn out. So can't do it in the wintertime, but maybe some planning for this summer. And anyway, that's kind of, I mean, I could talk about affordable housing and climate and equity, but I'm just kind of giving you the specifics for what we've really done. And I really think that community building on council is what we're focusing on right now. And I guess the only other thing I'd say is as counselors absorb information and try and wrap their arms around being on city council, I think there's a huge learning curve also in terms of really figuring out where our decision space and where the issues are. Because as much as you educate yourself while you're campaigning, it's very different to then sit on council. And what may sound like a great idea out on the campaign trail doesn't really translate to actually how it works. So it takes a while for them. There's a big education there to really kind of get focused to see, okay, here's where we have some discretion and wiggle room and how could we implement something differently. But no, we cannot provide more services and lower taxes. It's just not going to happen. So, it's exciting. I think we've got a good council and that's where we're going these days. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gwen. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? I think that Big Dipper truck is a great idea. And I know there's some other ice cream trucks in town too. So I completely agree with you, Gwen, that I really am hoping that this summer, spring, summer, it'll be open and exciting to be able to meet in person, safe and everything. And I can't wait for that day.
I would recommend look at MCPS, look at their calendar, and once school is out, people are gone. Right. So either do it while school's still in session and you're going to get a lot more families too. But we had a great time. It was a really, really good meeting and it was lots of people came out and enjoyed it.
That's great. Wonderful. So any comments once more from? No? All right. Well, I think if we don't have any more comments, then I think we can adjourn a little before 7:30.
Oh.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. I got my first community forum done with, so I'm really excited that I was able to meet you all, and I'm excited to get to work.
Welcome, Kalina.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again,
Kalina.
Feel free to reach out to me if you ever want. So
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
great. There
Bye.
we go. Thank
Bye.
you.